As the state prepares to defend the new heartbeat abortion law in court in 2020, some women are considering their options if the law does take effect.
And as more states have adopted stricter laws, women have increasingly crossed state lines to have the procedure, including coming here to Georgia. But that could soon become more difficult.
Pushing for an end, Georgia lawmakers and others across the country have worked for tougher abortion laws, hoping to greatly reduce the number of abortions. But their efforts may have led to an unintended consequence, with women crossing state lines to end their pregnancies. The number of abortions nationwide has fallen, but the amount of women in the Midwest, Mountain West, and here in the South looking for options outside their home state has risen, with women traveling for closer clinics or to states with less restrictive laws. An Associated Press review found at least 276,000 women traveled to another state to terminate pregnancies between 2012 and 2017. More than 44,800 of those in 2017, the most recent data available. During that time, 13 states saw an increase in the number of women who traveled out of state for an abortion, and that includes Georgia. The number of out-of-state abortions here rose from 11.5% to 15%. Why? Experts and advocates say despite passing restrictive laws, Georgia was slightly more accessible than some surrounding states. The Guttmacher Institute, an abortion rights research organization, said this year alone, lawmakers across the country approved 58 abortion restrictions. Nearly half would ban all, most, or some abortions. Advocates say if recent regulations like Georgia's so-called heartbeat law are upheld by the Supreme Court, it could drive more women to seek abortions in neighboring states.
And right now, Georgia has a mandatory waiting period, but women are not required to go to a clinic twice like they have to do in nearby Tennessee. But if the state's new heartbeat law goes into effect, Georgia would have one of the earliest state-imposed abortion bans. That could leave women traveling even further away from where they live to have an abortion.